I love SpongeBob because he's funny, but I love Squidward Tentacles more because he's bitter, cynical, friendless, unsuccessful, and trapped in a dead-end customer service job. And those are traits I can relate to. SpongeBob also has a long history of pretty decent video game adaptations. So it was with a pervasively mild interest that I approached SpongeBob SquarePants, creature from the Krusty Krab.
Plankton's rampage seems completely unstoppable. Our only hope is a flying sponge.
Not so fast, you miserable creature! It's a living nightmare! Dive!
Can SpongeBob escape Plankton's evil clutches? Will this menacing monster ever be stopped? The fate of Bikini Bottom is in your hands! SpongeBob SquarePants, creature from the Krusty Krab, rampaging your way, October 2000.
SpongeBob SquarePants, creature from the Krusty Krab, released on November 19th, 2006, one of 22 launch titles for the Nintendo Wii, developed by Blitz Games, who are veterans of cheap licensed video game development, and who are perhaps best known for developing the utterly bizarre Burger King franchise video game, known as Sneak King, in which players controlled the titular Burger King guy as he creepily snuck around and surprised victims with free crappy cheeseburgers. SpongeBob SquarePants, creature from the Krusty Krab, is a game about dreams. I have dreams. I dream of someday not being such a freaking fatso. I also dream of someday someone actually watching one of these videos. But Creature from the Krusty Krab isn't about those kinds of dreams. It's about the Freudian kind of dreams. The I just dreamed of my mother peeling an enormous phallic cucumber, and then the cucumber cried out with my pastor's voice and bled melted mozzarella cheese kind of dream. In Creature from the Krusty Krab, you play through the dreams of three iconic SpongeBob characters. SpongeBob himself, Chubbo Blubbo dumb sidekick Patrick Star, and minuscule angry restaurateur Plankton. SpongeBob dreams of being a race car driver. Patrick dreams of being a chubby superhero in a world somewhat horrifyingly populated exclusively by other Patricks in silly costumes. And Plankton dreams of being chased by a monster cheeseburger. These dream world settings are the game's greatest strength, as it allows for an impressive amount of variety and a completely bonkers off-the-wall silly ludicrousness. After finishing being a race car driver, SpongeBob gets trapped in an Alaskan bullworm's stomach and has some Pinocchio in Monstro whale-style escape hijinks. Then Patrick gets launched into space, and the game gets stuck in this very poorly and awkwardly controlled flying section for a while. Then Plankton grows huge and turns the tables on the now puny cheeseburger, smashing apart the city in his beefy, greasy Angus pursuit. Then, confusingly, SpongeBob and Patrick both crash into Plankton's dream, and the game gets stuck in another seemingly endless flying section like, for real, this thing never ends. Superhero Patrick battles the giant Plankton. Then there's a weird interlude with a cheeseburger pretending to be a therapist. Then the three characters race each other to see who gets possession of the dreamy cheeseburger. And then it's revealed that the whole thing was Gary the Snail's dream all along. It's pretty weird. The platforming and racing sections are long, very slow, and very repetitive, and ultimately the game is pretty tedious to play. With that said, the game has a ton of style and pizzazz. The game may be boring to play, but it's at least interesting to look at. The rapidly changing environments are full of color and creativity and bombastic insanity that no matter how boring it got, I was still willing to play to see what the next absurdity would be. These racing sections, for example, are kind of terrible. The controls are awkward and stiff, and the race goes on for way too long, and it's not even actually a race. There are no fellow competitors to race. It's just a time trial, and it's so easy, it's basically impossible to lose. I flung myself face first into basically every obstacle and still easily won. But it at least looks cool. There's explosions all over the place, buildings are collapsing, SpongeBob and Patrick are making these hilarious and somewhat terrifying angry racer faces. So it's not always fun to play, but this game is always fun to look at. The motion controls are usually okay, occasionally unresponsive, and sometimes, like these flying sections, completely terrible. You control this airplane by holding the Wii remote vertically, straight up into the air, and as you move the controller, the airplane jerks and heaves in largely random directions. There's also this SpongeBob band mode that has nothing to do with anything else and is just kind of pointless. And very similar to the equally pointless and terrible video game Wii Music, which wouldn't be released for another 2 years. Also, incredibly, there's no option to play the clarinet, the one instrument that actually features prominently in the show. If there's any single instrument that SpongeBob fans would actually want to play, it would be the clarinet, but it's not here. It's weird enough that this mode exists at all, but the lack of the clarinet is really baffling and kind of personally insulting. As a Squidward Tentacles fan, I will be seeing a lot of SpongeBob in my future, because 7 more SpongeBob games were released for the Nintendo Wii over the course of its lifespan, and I will review every single one, or die trying. Oh yeah. Woo!